Alrighty, I'll just go ahead and get started as people are coming in. There's also an intro slide, so I don't think people are going to miss anything here. So, welcome everybody to the 2025 Green verification report with our RY24 data. My name is Kieran Hardiman. Hopefully, some of you know me. I'm a senior analyst here on the Green team. Been here for about 3 years. And we'll just go ahead and start with who we are. So we are Center for Resource Solutions. We are an NGO with the mission statement of creating policy and market solutions to advance sustainable energy. And we've been around since about 1997. So other than the Green certification programs, we have a few different work streams. For example, our CAP program, which provides expert assistance on tricky carbon accounting issues. We also have a policy wing, as well as our renewable energy markets annual conference, which has a few plugs at the end of this presentation. So we'll just go ahead and hop into it. So this will be mainly focused, or really entirely focused on the Greenie Energy uh, verification report that was published back in November, as well as all of the visual representations. So we'll start with this chart here that shows the retail sales by product type for 2024, as well as, the the time that's elapsed since then. So getting started here, we had about 143.7 million retail sales this year, which is a 14% increase from last year, which was about 125%. We see a majority of those increase in sales from our REC products. So that's RECs, PPAs, and VPPAs right here. That grew by about 16% from 2023. There was about a 20% decrease in the CCA and competitive electricity product types, but there was a 6% increase in our green pricing programs, as well as an 8% increase in our direct products from about 14.9 to 5.4. Direct products being direct procurement. So those are PPAs that we are directly certifying between the generator and the end user. So moving on, we have a breakout of the different product types right here to residential and non-residential, as well as wholesale. So wholesale transactions, for those of you that don't know, are when a Greenie Energy participant sells RECs to another Greenie Energy participant or another power user or another seller in the electricity market, and those RECs aren't retired and they plan on being used in another certified product. So those might not be used in this reporting year. They might be used in the next reporting year. And we found that out of that 16 million wholesale, about 3 million of that was used in this year. So that gives us that total unique certified sales of 156 million, and then 143 million of that was retail sales. And you could see sort of the uh, similar trends. There isn't anything much different from this year as it was last year in terms of the way these are split out. So just going to my notes here, just want to see if there's anything I missed. Nope, looks like we're good. So we can move on to the sales by customer type. And this is really a representation of sort of what you saw in that last chart between commercial and residential customers. You still see that a vast majority of our sales are going to commercial customers, um, as well. There are still residential customers that are purchasing green pricing plans, competitive electricity products, and there are even some rec residential products out there. And then these are our breakouts by customer type. So there was a 7% decrease in the overall number of customers purchasing retail options, but there was a 15% increase in the amount of customers that purchased the REX and PPA product type. There was, unfortunately, a decrease in about 11% for customers enrolled in the green pricing plan, and those trends were followed with CCAs and competitive electricity by about 18% decrease there. There have been like a number of sort of legislative purposes that sort of make Greenie not very viable in those areas, but we would love to have them back, and if there was ever any sort of voluntary action they would like to take, we are happy to see if we can help out there. So moving on, these are states with renewable electricity products, either UGPs or competitive electricity products. Fortunately, this map isn't updated from last year, but we do have about five new states, including Arkansas, Maine, and Massachusetts, as well as some others. And this year, we're going to maybe take a look at these contributions of renewable resource types a little bit more in depth. You probably saw in the verification report that there's some new charts there. And even though they follow pretty similar trends as they usually do, there's some cool things that maybe we want to highlight, things that the market are picking up on in more recent years. So these trends are pretty similar, where we still see wind comprising majority of the contribution to our retail sales, but solar increased from 19% to 22%. So about 30 million megawatt hours coming from solar projects. Uh, then the non-gaseous biomass, low impact hydro, and gaseous biomass all staying at about the same level, and no geothermal this year. Always happy to see if there's anything we can do with geothermal facilities. So if you have any of those, we're happy to see if they are compliant with their standard, which is available on our website. And then we have this comparison between the contributions and the facility count that was used. So, solar, there's a lot of small scale solar that we include in, or that can be included in a certified product. And we still see that solar is picking up massively. Last year's facilities number for solar was about 750, and now we're at 880. So, those are unique tracking system IDs within all of the different tracking systems that are now CRS listed, which can be certified, or, maybe some untracked small scale solar as well in there. But we're still seeing that huge boom in solar as demonstrated by this chart here. So from 19% to 22%, we still see this huge uptick in solar. And we always like kind of focusing on those non-wind resources to demonstrate how rapid this growth in solar has been. And we thought this was a new inclusion in the verification report that we thought would be interesting to our participants to see sort of the count of facilities. And I know this title is a bit of a handful here, but percent of facilities by nameplate capacity by resource type. So this is looking at the overall count of the facilities that were used this year. And we can see that about 25% of the total count of facilities were 0 to 2 megawatts, but about 90% of that, over 90% of that is in solar. So, and you can see that trend, in the 0 to about 50, these three bars here, while wind starts to pick up more and more in that 10 to 50 range. And then by the end, you have a majority of that being wind. And I thought it was interesting to maybe see what these contributions were, because we're seeing a lot of um, uptick, and we're seeing a lot of like inbound requests regarding distributed generation, and we're very much kind of keen on where that's headed, and we want to sort of see if we can include that in our certification at a more sort of official level. So I thought it would be interesting to maybe show what those contributions are so far. And even though the 25% of the facilities currently are solar, um, our small scale solar, they only comprise about 0.2%, which, might not seem significant right now, but I can definitely see that this will start, trending upward and upward. But of course, we still see a vast majority, about 78% of our supply coming from 100 plus megawatt facilities. And something interesting that we found was that about 15% of those solar facilities in total that were used were 50 megawatt or more facilities. So even though distributed generation is definitely taking off, and we're happy to learn more about what you guys have to say in the market, we're still also seeing an increase in solar commercial capacity for voluntary purchases from these facilities. So moving on, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the following slides. These are the breakdowns of the contributions by COD. So you can see that for the megawatt hours by COD, approximately 46% of supply is coming from facilities 5 years or younger, which is great to see that, we're still seeing a trend of a lot of new solar, or sorry, not new solar, new resource types being the main contributor to our program. This is like an increase, I believe, from like 39% of our supply last year being from 5 years or younger to 46, which is great. And you can see pretty similar trend overall in our capacity here. It's about 52% coming from facilities that were from um, 2020 and beyond. So, as well as the count itself. So about 50% or so of facilities that were used this year for supply came from facilities 5 years or younger. And then, um, sorry, 2 seconds. Yeah, so we see pretty similar trends here for the state sales of retail supply. So, Texas, California, Washington, and Ohio are typically always in the top five. And then, oh, sorry, top four. And then, the other states sort of vary between, 5 to 2 or 3%. And we have noticed this consumption is typically in more populated states and states near coasts. And then these trends are also very similar in the sense that Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas are always sort of the top three. And then from there on, Florida, North Dakota, Quebec, South Dakota, and Nebraska, all of these, we see a larger and larger uptick in facilities and supply every year from these states. So here's a map representation of that. We have changed. We have a sort of new map on the verification report now. So if you wanted to go over there after this webinar and take a look, you can sort of hover over each state and see the estimated contribution here. So you could see on the left-hand side the supply, where a majority of that's coming from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, as well as, Quebec, North Dakota here. And then you can see where that is, where people are requesting Greenie, which is not only in Texas, but as well as many of the West Coast states, as well as you can see here. Um, and I did unfortunately cut off some sales up here. There were some sales in Alaska and the Yukon as well. So uh, this is the last slide here, and we wanted to highlight the purchasers of our products this year, which is something that we haven't done before, to really just sort of highlight the diversity of purchasers over 10,000 megawatt hours. So we've kind of put them into these buckets here at the bottom, but a few trends I think to highlight is that even though tech makes up 28.5%. This is actually decreased as a portion of like all large purchasers. It was about 41% back in 2017, and now we're looking at them only being 28.5%, but their overall purchasing amount has doubled since 2017. So even though it's doubled in the total amount of megawatt hours, they only comprise about 28.5%. And some other ones to highlight would be manufacturing and supply chain, as well as other. So we saw manufacturing and supply chain grow from 4.8% in 2017 to 16.6%, which really sort of highlights the impact of focusing on scope three emissions that a lot of big companies want to focus on as they're looking more into their sustainability targets. And it's great to see that there's actually, some noticeable um, improvement there in our program and being able to identify that. Another one to highlight is other. So that started about 5.4% in 2017, and it's at 7.4% now. But the overall megawatt hours has increased fourfold since then. So a lot of large purchasers are sort of or we're seeing a lot more diversity in our large purchasers as voluntary sort of contributions continues to grow. So I know I kind of sped through that, but we already got our key takeaways here. So 143 million retail megawatt hours, or 3.7% total of the U.S. electricity market in 2024. That's up from 3.2% last year. 15 million retail megawatt hours more sold this year than in 2023. About 1 million retail purchasers, including over 78,000 businesses. And then we have an increase of solar with a lot more options for both sellers and buyers in terms of where they want to get that solar, as well as newer renewables driving the market. And, this year, a new portion being the growing diversity of our large purchasers. So we're seeing more, we're just seeing a larger group and a more diverse group of people purchasing 10,000 megawatt hours or more. So, yeah. Um, a few plugs here at the end. We have our clean energy accounting project. This is where, large stakeholders in the energy market can join our advisory groups and learn more about how they can tackle carbon accounting issues. A few things coming up there. These are, the next four papers that we plan on sort of covering. So we got accounting for battery storage. We have, global data market conditions for standard delivery, clean energy reporting, credible cross-market energy attribute certificate transactions, and clean energy attribution in the corporate value chain. All of these things are sort of worked on by a great group of people here at CRS. So I always love um, highlighting what they're doing. They also have like advisory committee participation and working group sponsorship. Um, You'll definitely see these people at REM every now and again. So if you want to learn more, we also have our REM conference that's coming up. That's going to be in DC, September 1st through 3rd. And then more closely, there is REM Asia that is coming up April 21st through 22nd in Singapore. So I'll go ahead and stop the presentation. Here's my contact info. Um, and yeah, happy to answer any questions. Looks like we got two in the Q&A right now. Um, do we have the retail sales through CCAs broken out by state? Um, that's a good question. We likely do have those numbers. I might want to get back to my team about how sort of uh, sensitive that information is. I don't know if we've ever really given people or provided like a state breakdown of a resource type, or sorry, not resource type, but a product type. But happy to get back to you there. So we see New York is listed as a top 10 retail state, but not listed as a green E state. Let me see here. Um, that might be referring to the slide with yeah, those are retail electricity options. So we don't have any Greenie certified electricity options in that area, but people are free to purchase unbundled RECs for for their load in that area. Anybody's got any more questions? Are you seeing demand for other resource types? A CCS EAC methodology was proposed. Um, Sorry, Jack, I might actually not know what a CCS is. It's probably not something that sort of like crosses our path here at Greenie when it comes to sort of assessing facilities. But we are seeing we are like always getting sort of like inbounds regarding different resource types. I have seen some geothermal questions every now and again. Um, every now and again I'll get some biomass questions and things like that. We do have a renewable fuels program. That is trying to kind of field more, um, questions about those things. And I would definitely encourage going onto our website and taking a look there. Nothing really planned for greeny energy in terms of like new resource types. Um, I think we have looked into different like clean energy methods and things like that, but nothing really on the greeny end. We are seeing, we have recently included hourly products into our logo use agreement. So if people want to start certifying time-based hourly products, we have started sort of assessing those, and I think we can even do it for uh, RY25. I don't know if it's RY25 or RY26. Feel free to send me an email afterward if that's sort of closer to what you're thinking about. Um, okay. Oh, a difference between Republican and Democrat states. That would be a very, I mean, interesting sort of breakdown. We don't do any sort of like official sort of like, we don't have any like kind of political sort of like affiliations or anything like that. So we don't really have that kind of analysis. Barry said, please go over the first chart showing the map of states. Barry, do you want to go back to maybe I can share my screen again and show the supply is the supply and sales chart good, or are you referring to the electricity products map? Because the electricity products map doesn't really like show any kind of like data or anything. That's really just sort of where we offer or where our participants offer Greenie certified products. Um, but maybe I can go back to that supply and sales breakdown. Um, and people can sort of like assess where these supplies are coming from there. So yeah, this is the state with the electricity options. Yeah, I believe Maine, Massachusetts, and Arkansas have some UGP products there that are, offered by their utilities. And then going back, this is our supply side and our certified sales. So, you can see that a majority of our supply is coming from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, North Dakota, and um, which are then being, sold in, places like California, but as well as Texas. So there are a lot of, use claims being made in Texas. And I can probably only see that maybe getting larger and larger with new data centers popping up in certain areas. So um, these maps are available on the verification report. Happy to answer any questions offline. And yeah, feel free to also take a screenshot. Our communications team will be able to send this recording in an email to y'all. So I'll just go back to the Q&A. Yeah, Barry, that was the electricity options second. How frequent are 24/7 sales? So we only just started looking at 24/7 right now. So I don't really have an answer off the top of my head as to how many we've already gotten in. It's only been about 6 months. So any thoughts on the GHG protocol revision about location hourly based in terms of trends about supply and sales? Yeah, I would definitely encourage taking a look at what our policy team has to say there, Iha. I am unfortunately just like an analyst on the Greenie Energy team, so I'm really most of my day to day involves, assessing CRS listed facilities, seeing if there's any sort of like regulatory supply constraints in certain states and things like that. But we do have definitely have a team that can talk to you more about the GHG protocol. So feel free to let me direct you to them. So yeah, I don't know if I have any like sort of like grand opinions about like the new GHG protocol scope 2 guidance myself. I sort of leave that mostly to our policy team, but we've been flexible as an organization, and we try to work as much as possible with different stakeholders to really sort of like drive the market forward as much as we can. So happy to hear happy to hear y'all's thoughts over email. But looks like that was the last of the questions. Um, I'll probably just go ahead and end the webinar here. So thank you all very much for attending. Um, you can always access the verification report at greenie.org, and happy to answer any questions. So thanks a bunch, y'all. Have a good one.